Hi everyone, my name is Ola Dabbagh-Roberts. I'm the Learning and Development Manager at the Moir Group. At the moment it's a strange time and we're all taking a bit of adjusting to this ultimate disruption that we've had, which has essentially changed the way we do things from business to schooling to how we connect socially. Today I just want to talk to you briefly about recruiting and also onboarding your team. Essentially things are still moving along. They might have slowed down, but certainly there are some organisations, you might be one of them, where you are still needing key roles filled and you are still needing to onboard those key people that you bring on at this time as effectively as you can. So I want to just cover off on how important it is to onboard effectively in normal times, but also how you might adjust your approach at the moment. So why it's important and also some of the key things to remember. And also towards the end of this brief presentation, which is around 15 minutes, I'll also give you just a little bit of a tool to self-audit. So making sure that you do have all your ducks lined up if you are bringing new people on at this time. We know through lots of research that turnover, 47% of turnover occurs in that very first 90 days. So we're trying to get the 90 days as right as we possibly can. And, whilst we're hesitant with this new approach that some of us might not be comfortable with, it's really important to keep in mind that it's as important, if not more important at the moment, to get that right and to make sure those people are engaged and are on their way to success in your organisation. So some of you may not have a formal onboarding program, and that's okay. Some might have a really good automated onboarding program which transfers really well into the current environment. Wherever you sit on the continuum, what I think you'll get from this is essentially just a few ideas that you may adapt or introduce if you haven't already, and making sure that some of these statistics you see on the screen, such as that at least a quarter of employees turnover in that first 45 days, does not happen to the people you're bringing on board. So clearly there are benefits to a structured program. You'll have more engaged employees, more confidence, greater trust in the organisation. People are feeling quite unsettled and nervous at the moment about, first of all, getting jobs, but certainly how they'll manage to succeed in those roles and to learn everything they need to learn in those early stages. So having a structured program now, or putting something in place which is bespoke to your situation at the moment, involves a little bit of planning, and by doing that you'll have all the ingredients of a successful onboarding program. It may be tempting at the moment not to necessarily go too deep into the onboarding. It's like, right, let's get these people a computer, let's get them started. It really is important to make sure that you do go deep. So connection at the moment is more important than ever. So yes, you need to continue with your compliance and those legal and policy related issues. You need to make sure that the roles and responsibilities are clarified and everyone knows what they need to be doing and that they have the information they need. They do need to be involved and engaged and aligned with your culture right from the beginning. So those things really are still incredibly important. And because we don't have that face-to-face at the moment, and that connection that we normally would foster by having a coffee or a lunch on the first few days of someone arriving isn't possible. So you need to facilitate that in this new remote world. Some of the things that we don't do well in terms of onboarding, and here are some statistics you can see on the screen around what organisations miss. Just pay particular attention to these things like how the organisational processes work, who to go to for what particular training that they might need right from the outset, and helping facilitate that. As you can see, introduction to key players. 43% of organisations don't do that effectively, even in normal business as usual times. It's more important now to make sure that the key stakeholders for your new starts are really clearly identified and engaged in the process of your onboarding. Workspace is an interesting one because you can't control what that's going to be like. The best you can do, and it's very important to do, is to provide some policies and guidelines around what that looks like. Certainly provide them all the technology and make sure that's seamless. But what you don't want to do is miss any of these key things in those first, particularly those first few days, few weeks. And with that also, if I look at the sort of last point on that slide, is a mentor or a buddy. Really important to have someone as a go-to, whether that's a manager or HR or someone else in their team, but they do need to have that person to confidently go to if they need anything or ask some questions. You know, in normal times, business as usual, automated onboarding is something that we see as creating efficiencies and helping us, you know, reduce the laborious task of some of the compliance and those sorts of things. And when it's done well, it can really do that. We've been forced into a situation where that needs to happen anyway in terms of some of the processes and the compliance, that sort of thing. So if we haven't already done it, we're probably looking at doing it right now. And there are plenty of people out there who can support you in that. One of the things I will note, the last point on the slide as well, is making sure that you do consider access and inclusion if you do have employees with particular needs, catering for those. And so what does the new normal look like, and what can you do now if you are bringing someone on board? First of all is, I'm doing this over Zoom. Zoom is something that I think I wish I'd have bought shares in, because essentially most people are using some sort of platform like Zoom to do their interviews. We do most of our interviews in the last few weeks on Zoom or FaceTime if the person doesn't have it. And it's really important to get a little bit more comfortable using this new video medium. I know I've had to. It's really important that right from the time that that person has accepted the role, the manager and some key people stay really close. So they're setting up Zoom calls. They're really getting involved right from the beginning and staying involved through to, you know, throughout that person's first 90 days and obviously beyond. Hopefully we'll all be out of here by then, but assuming we're not, it could be a little while, then making sure that those connections stay strong right from even before the person's in the mix. Send a lovely welcome pack. This is a really good chance for you to bring your employer brand to life. So whatever it might be, a digital gift, as you know, a cup, a journal. I even suggest some comfortable socks as the winter weather gets a little bit more onto us. Set them up from home. I've said that in terms of the tools, what they need, but also in information that you feel they may need to have. Sometimes the way our systems are set up is that some things are easily accessible through a normal, you know, intranet, but some things are a bit harder to get to. So just setting those things up, and I'm sure some of you have got some technology challenges at the moment to provide that access to staff. It's obviously really important to make sure new hires have whatever it is they need in terms of information at the ready. Making you know, use of the technology that's out there. Again, we're all getting a little bit used to it, unless you're someone who's, you know, sort of advanced in that journey. But you know, reach out to others. I know that there's some great stuff on LinkedIn to suggest different platforms and different ways of connecting. Once they are on board, stay close, and I suggest, you know, every couple of days a Zoom call, at least a phone call. Probably in the first week or two, I'd suggest every day, maybe even top and tail of the day is give them a call or a Zoom chat and just check in and make sure they're okay, and that they've got some clear objectives to work on for that particular day, and that they are, you know, comfortable that they're meeting your expectations, and you're comfortable that you're meeting theirs. And I guess the opportunity here is looking at, you know, some of these practices you'll take into the, you know, we're in a new normal, but you'll take into what happens after this crisis ends, if you like. Things like, you know, are your policies all centralised and clear? Are they articulated really well? Some companies are all, you know, forced to create a work from home policy at the moment because they may have never had one. So looking at some of those policies and those procedures is something that it's an opportunity to do at the moment as well. And just as we move to, you know, to sort of wrapping this up, I wanted to talk about, well, what are the aims, or what should you be aiming for with your new team member in that first 2 weeks, 45 days, and then at the end of that 90 days? First 2 weeks, you're aiming for understanding. The second 2 weeks, you're aiming for them to be quite self-sufficient up to that 45-day mark. And then at 90 days, you really are aiming for self-sufficiency and performance by then. Having said that, might be a little bit different in this environment, but if you do keep to the principles of good onboarding, connection, clarity, you know, you will potentially achieve these things in any case, even in this new environment. So some of the things under the understanding is checking in, answering any questions. You may not be able to arrange a team lunch, but you can certainly have a Zoom chat, or making sure that they are scheduled in their diaries. All the different team meetings and that sort of thing are locked in, and they're familiar with what the rhythm of the organisation is very early, and really just connecting them up with the different people they need. So that's what you need to aim for in that first couple of weeks. And as I said, moving into, you know, a month and a half to 3 months, that 90-day mark, it's really just keeping close and making sure that they're very clear on what they need to do. And the feedback loop is really important as well, as making sure that they're getting feedback from you, you're getting feedback from them, and you're adjusting as you go. I think one of the biggest things at the moment to emphasise is manager involvement. I think sometimes when we're in the office and there's other people around, it's okay for the manager to potentially you know, share the load and and other people step in and answer questions. I think at this stage with your remote onboarding is making sure that the manager is really close to and taking the lead and being really, really active. So maybe if you are someone listening to this that's from HR, is consider reminders for managers or templates, pro formas, things that they can use for their own confidence level in having these regular conversations with their new person. And obviously still, you know, it is still appropriate to spread the load across different stakeholders, but making sure that that support is really, really tight and abundant in these early times. What I've got on the screen now, you'll see, is having a look at a little bit of a self-audit. So looking at people, process and technology. And as you consider what you're doing at the moment, if you've got a new hire starting soon, or if you've just looked at this, you know, to get some tips if it might be happening in the future, then look at it from these three things: people, process, technology. Ask yourself who needs to be involved, who is involved. Make a list of the key stakeholders. How am I going to introduce this staff member and put them into the context of the organisation? Have I provided the new person as well as others key information that they need about the role, the person, the shared tasks? And am I getting enough feedback, or how am I getting feedback from that new person and others around, you know, to make that person successful? Process, obviously things like being paid on time, all those things are really important, making sure that they've got the right tools. So this is rather a bit of a self-check because it does cover off on some of the things I've already talked about. And finally, just some key points to leave you with is engage the person before they start. So make sure they feel part of the team and are in the loop right from the acceptance of that offer. Managers, stay really, really close. Bring that employer brand to life. It's an opportunity to shine, you know, whether it's through a gift or you know, what you're actually communicating, how you're communicating it. Staying close to the new hire, I've said that, make it a priority. Clear your schedule particularly on the first few days that they arrive. Clarity is really key, particularly in the absence of having you in the office to just, you know, phone or tap on the door, is making sure that there's really clear written responsibilities. Setting expectations, and with that, I believe you'll set them up for success, and that first 90 days will be as good, if not a better experience than they may have had. So all the best with your onboarding. If you do need any support, please feel free to contact Moir, myself. I'm more than happy to talk you through a particular situation, or just follow up with you on some of the points we've covered today. Thanks again. Bye.